Neville Goddard. Neville Lancelot Goddard was born on the 19th of February 1905 in Barbados into a large family of 9 boys and 1 girl. From an early age, he was fascinated by the invisible powers of the mind and the mystical teachings found in Scripture. When he moved to New York City in his late teens, he originally pursued a career as a dancer and actor, performing on Broadway and living a fairly ordinary artistic life. But that changed when he met a mysterious Ethiopian teacher named Abdullah, who would completely transform his understanding of reality. Abdullah introduced Neville to Kabbalah, scriptural symbolism, and the law of assumption, the idea that imagination creates reality. Under Abdullah's mentorship, Neville studied the Bible not as literal history, but as a psychological allegory, where every character represents a state of consciousness. Abdullah taught him that feeling is the secret, that to manifest a desire, one must feel it real within imagination until it becomes external fact. Neville spent the next 4 decades teaching and writing about this philosophy across the United States, especially in Los Angeles and New York. His lectures attracted thousands, and his tone, a mix of biblical authority and practical mysticism, gave him a prophetic presence. His books, such as Feeling is the Secret, The Power of Awareness, 1952, and The Law and the Promise, 1961, became foundational texts in New Thought spirituality and later influenced countless teachers, including Wayne Dyer, Rhonda Byrne, and Bob Proctor. At the heart of Neville's message was one simple but radical truth. Imagination creates reality. He taught that God and human imagination are one, and that the world outside is simply yourself pushed out. Every event, relationship, and circumstance in life is the result of the assumptions and emotional states you persistently hold within. To change your world, you must change your inner conversations. He passed away on October 1st, 1972 in Los Angeles, California, but his legacy has grown enormously in the digital age. His lectures have been preserved and shared widely online, reaching millions who resonate with his calm, commanding voice and his uncompromising faith in the power of consciousness. Neville's life was full of interesting moments that bordered on the miraculous. One of the most famous stories is how he manifested a trip back to Barbados during the Great Depression without a cent to his name, by simply imagining himself sleeping in his childhood bed. Days later, he received unexpected tickets and passage, exactly as he had visualized. Another little-known fact, Neville avoided religious titles and institutions entirely. Though deeply spiritual, he refused to identify as a preacher, insisting that there is no mediator between man and God, because you are He. His confidence, poetic speech, and mystical experiences gave him a unique aura, somewhere between philosopher, prophet, and magician of the mind. Today, Neville Goddard is recognized as one of the most influential spiritual teachers of the 20th century. His ideas continue to shape modern self-help, manifestation, and consciousness studies. He left behind not a religion, but a revelation that every human being carries within them the power of creation itself. Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale was born on March 12, 1921 in Los Angeles, California, and grew up during the Great Depression. His early life was marked by poverty and uncertainty, which sparked his deep curiosity about what makes some people succeed while others struggle. That question, why are some people happy and prosperous while others aren't, became the foundation of his life's work. Before becoming one of the world's most influential motivational speakers, Earl served in the U.S. Marine Corps during World War II and was one of the few survivors of the USS Arizona during the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. This near-death experience left a permanent mark on him and intensified his quest for the deeper meaning of life. After the war, he began working in radio broadcasting, where his rich, deep voice soon became his trademark. In 1956, he recorded a spoken-word album titled The Strangest Secret, which became one of the most famous motivational recordings in history. In it, he revealed what he called the strangest secret of success: we become what we think about. This simple but profound principle revolutionized how people thought about mindset, success, and the law of attraction. Earl explained that thoughts are causes and conditions are effects. By focusing on a goal with faith and discipline, we literally shape our own destiny. The record sold over 1 million copies, earning him a gold record, the first ever for a spoken word recording, and launched the modern self-help industry. Earl Nightingale co-founded Nightingale Conant Corporation with Lloyd Conant in the 1960s, producing and distributing motivational audio programs and courses from other great teachers like Napoleon Hill, Earl Schwaf, and Wayne Dyer. His radio program, Our Changing World, aired daily for more than 30 years, reaching millions across the globe. His teachings centered on self-discipline, purpose, and thought control. He emphasized that success is not luck, but a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. In other words, if you know where you're going and are steadily moving toward it, you are already successful. He also taught that human beings possess unlimited potential. The only limitation is their own self-image and habitual thinking. Earl was a master at blending philosophy and practicality. He drew inspiration from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, the Bible, and the Stoics like Marcus Aurelius. His delivery was calm, authoritative, and timeless, the kind of voice that seemed to speak straight to the listener's subconscious. He received numerous awards for his contributions to personal development and broadcasting, including induction into the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame. He continued writing and recording until his passing on March 25, 1989, at age 68. Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill was born on October 26, 1883, in a one-room cabin in Pound, Virginia, USA. He grew up poor, rebellious, and fatherless after his mother's early death, but his stepmother encouraged his love for writing. By age 13, he was working as a reporter, a job that would eventually put him in contact with the man who would change his destiny, Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate and one of the richest men in the world. In 1908, Carnegie challenged the young journalist with a 20-year mission to interview the most successful people of their time and discover the universal laws of success. Hill accepted the task and went on to interview over 500 of the world's greatest achievers, including Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Alexander Graham Bell, Theodore Roosevelt, and Charles M. Schwab. From these encounters, Napoleon Hill identified the recurring mental patterns that led to achievement, which he called the philosophy of achievement. His life's work culminated in his most famous book, Think and Grow Rich, 1937, a timeless classic that has sold over 100 million copies worldwide. It remains one of the best-selling books of all time in the self-help genre. The central premise of Hill's philosophy is deceptively simple. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Hill taught that thoughts are powerful creative forces. To manifest success, one must combine desire, faith, and persistence with a clear goal. He introduced key concepts like definiteness of purpose, knowing exactly what you want, the mastermind alliance, surrounding yourself with like-minded thinkers, and autosuggestion, reprogramming the subconscious through repeated positive statements. These ideas would later inspire teachers like Earl Nightingale, Bob Proctor, Tony Robbins, and Rhonda Byrne of The Secret. Beyond Think and Grow Rich, Hill wrote several other works, including The Law of Success, 1928, Outwitting the Devil, written in 1938, but published posthumously in 2011, and Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude, 1959, with W. Clement Stone. Outwitting the Devil, in particular, revealed a darker, introspective side of his philosophy, presenting a dialogue between Hill and a symbolic devil, representing fear, laziness, and conformity that prevents humans from realizing their potential. Napoleon Hill died on November 8, 1970, in Greenville, South Carolina, at age 87, leaving behind a legacy that continues to shape personal development, business leadership, and modern manifestation culture. An interesting fact about Hill is that he was among the first to bridge spiritual law and practical success, blending mysticism and psychology long before it was fashionable. He believed that the mind was the real engine of wealth, and that success was a spiritual process governed by the same invisible laws that shape the universe. Alan Watts. Alan Wilson Watts was born on January 6, 1915, in Chislehurst, England, and became one of the most celebrated interpreters of Eastern philosophy for the Western world. Known for his poetic eloquence and deep insight, he made complex ideas about spirituality, consciousness, and existence accessible to everyday people. From an early age, Watts was fascinated by religion and the mystery of existence. He grew up reading Buddhist texts and Christian theology, and by his teenage years, he was already writing essays on Zen. In 1938, he moved to the United States and joined the Episcopal priesthood, serving as a minister for several years. However, his growing belief that divinity was not confined to Christianity, but was present in all things, led him to leave the church. He became a professor and lecturer, blending Zen Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, and Western psychology into a unified philosophy of oneness. Through his hundreds of recorded talks and over 25 books, he popularized ideas that are now mainstream in spiritual and self-development circles, such as living in the present moment, embracing paradox, and recognizing that you are not separate from the universe, but one with it. Watts' central message was simple, yet revolutionary. You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. He rejected the notion of a divided world, God versus man, life versus death, good versus evil, and instead described reality as an interconnected dance, an eternal process of energy expressing itself through infinite forms. His lectures often addressed the illusion of the separate self, drawing parallels with Hindu Advaita Vedanta, the realization that the self and the universe are one. He described the ego as a social construct, a symbol of ourselves that keeps us trapped in anxiety and alienation. This understanding aligned closely with what modern psychology and mysticism later described as ego death or spiritual awakening. Throughout the 1960s, Watts became a prominent voice in the counterculture movement, influencing artists, thinkers, and seekers who were exploring consciousness, psychedelics, and meditation. His radio talks from his houseboat in Sausalito, California reached millions, and his voice, calm, witty, and profoundly lucid, became synonymous with intellectual freedom and inner peace. Watts passed away on November 16, 1973, at the age of 58 at his mountain home in Marin County, California. His death, though sudden, was in harmony with his own teachings that life and death are two sides of the same wave, inseparable and natural. Joseph Murphy. Joseph Murphy, 1898 to 1981, was an Irish-born spiritual teacher and author who became one of the key voices in the New Thought movement. Best known for his classic The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, 1963, he showed millions how faith, imagination, and belief can shape reality. Originally trained in chemistry and medicine, Murphy moved to the U.S. influenced by Ernest Holmes' Science of Mind. He taught that the subconscious mind is a creative force that turns thoughts and emotions into experiences. His message was simple: whatever you impress upon your subconscious mind in faith and feeling will manifest in your life. He believed that affirmations, visualization, and positive suggestion could reprogram the mind and attract health, success, and peace. His ideas blended biblical psychology, Eastern philosophy, and scientific reasoning, making his teachings both mystical and practical. Beyond his famous book, Murphy wrote over 30 titles, including Believe in Yourself, The Miracles of Your Mind, and Your Infinite Power to Be Rich. His calm, logical approach made him one of the most accessible spiritual authors of his time. Murphy passed away in 1981 in California, leaving behind a philosophy that remains a cornerstone of modern manifestation and self-help movements. Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor was born on July 5, 1934 in Ontario, Canada, and grew up in a working-class family with little formal education or money. Yet he went on to become one of the most influential motivational speakers and success teachers of the 20th and 21st centuries. For over 60 years, he dedicated his life to teaching people the laws of prosperity, mindset, and personal transformation, ideas that trace directly back to Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, and the New Thought movement. Proctor's early life was rough. He dropped out of high school and worked low-paying jobs, living with a mindset of limitation and struggle. Everything changed when, at age 26, a friend handed him a copy of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. That book ignited something in him. He began reading it daily, studying the principles of belief, desire, and persistence until they became part of his being. Within a year, he had gone from earning a few $1,000s to making over $100,000 a year, and later built a cleaning business that expanded internationally. Bob often said, "I went from being unhappy and broke to living the life of my dreams, and I didn't even know what I was doing." That realization drove him to understand why the principles worked, leading him into decades of deep study into the human mind, universal laws, and metaphysics. In the early 1960s, Proctor discovered Earl Nightingale's recording The Strangest Secret, the one that said, "We become what we think about." Bob was so inspired that he joined Nightingale Conant, the leading personal development company of the time, and worked directly with his mentor Earl Nightingale. There, he learned how to teach success principles with the same precision and passion that made him a global voice. In 1984, Bob founded Proctor Gallagher Institute, later co-owned with his mentee Sandy Gallagher, to teach personal development, business growth, and spiritual laws of success worldwide. His philosophy blended ancient spiritual truth with modern psychology, emphasizing that paradigms, deep subconscious belief systems determine every result in life. His core teaching was this: if you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. Bob passed away peacefully on February 3, 2022 at the age of 87, but his teachings continue through thousands of coaches and students around the world. Jim Rohn. Emmanuel Jim Rohn was born on the 17th of September, 1930, in Yakima, Washington, USA, and grew up on a small farm in Idaho during the Great Depression. Though his beginnings were humble, he became one of the most beloved motivational speakers, business philosophers, and mentors of the 20th century. His ideas shaped the modern self-improvement movement and influenced a new generation of teachers, including Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, Les Brown, and Darren Hardy. Jim's life changed dramatically in his mid-20s when he met Earl Shoaff, a successful entrepreneur and personal development mentor. At the time, Ron was working a modest job, broke, and disillusioned. But under Shoaff's guidance, he learned that success is not something you pursue. It's something you attract by becoming the kind of person who deserves it. That single idea became the cornerstone of his entire philosophy. Inspired, Ron began studying success principles, goal setting, and mindset. He applied them in business and soon became a millionaire by age 31 through his work with the NutriBio Vitamin Company. When the company eventually closed, Jim reinvented himself as a speaker, sharing what he had learned about personal transformation, wealth, and discipline. His talks were simple yet deeply profound, filled with short, memorable quotes and parables that made wisdom feel accessible to everyone. Some of Jim Rohn's most famous teachings include Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Formal education will make you a living, self-education will make you a fortune. He believed success came from mastering 4 key areas of life: personal development, relationships, leadership, and financial independence. His philosophy was practical and spiritual at once. He saw humans as creative beings capable of designing their destiny through discipline and mindset. In the 1970s and 80s, Jim Rohn became a leading figure in the personal development industry. He shared stages with names like Zig Ziglar and Earl Nightingale, and his seminars filled auditoriums across America. His audio programs and books, including The Art of Exceptional Living, 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness, and Leading an Inspired Life, became classics in self-help literature. What made Jim unique was his balance of philosophy and practicality. He didn't just motivate, he taught systems, setting goals, tracking progress, and creating habits that compound over time. He often said that success leaves clues, and that personal responsibility is the first step to freedom. Jim Rohn passed away on December 5, 2009 at the age of 79, leaving behind decades of recordings, books, and timeless quotes that continue to inspire millions. Abraham Hicks. Abraham Hicks refers to a collective of non-physical beings channeled through Esther Hicks, who alongside her late husband Jerry Hicks became one of the leading voices of the modern law of attraction movement. Born on March 5th, 1948 in Colville, Utah, Esther lived an ordinary life until 1986 when she began channeling a higher consciousness calling itself Abraham, a group of teachers devoted to helping humanity remember its creative power. Through her relaxed meditative state, she began sharing Abraham's messages publicly, leading to worldwide seminars known as the Teachings of Abraham. At the heart of their message is one foundational truth: you create your own reality. Abraham teaches that the universe is made of vibration and energy, and that emotions act as a compass guiding us toward alignment with our desires. Thoughts attract matching experiences. Joy, gratitude, and love raise vibration, while fear and resistance block manifestation. To attract what you want, you must enter the vortex, a state of emotional harmony with source energy.